Good evening and welcome to this virtual town hall hosted by the Apopka Voice and featuring former U.S. Congressman Alan Grayson, candidate in the special election for State Senate District 15. I'm Denise Connell. I'm the publisher of the Apopka Voice, and Reggie Connell, our managing editor, he will be the moderator for tonight's event. But before we dive in, there's a few things I want to throw out there, a couple items to keep in mind. One, this virtual town hall, along with all advertising options, were offered to all candidates running in this special election. While we have never endorsed a candidate for any local, county, or state election and don't intend to do so for this or future elections, we do believe in giving all candidates the opportunity to share their vision and answer questions of their electorate. At this point, Mr. Grayson is the only candidate who chose to participate in this virtual town hall. Number two, while this town hall and all advertisements featuring Mr. Grayson were paid for by his campaign, we will conduct it with the same journalistic integrity that we employ with our reporting and any other town hall facilitation, including not sharing any questions ahead of time with the candidate. And speaking of questions, if you have some that you would like to contribute during this town hall, I encourage you to text the number that's sitting on Reggie's screen, the 407-415-6218. And those texts will come in. We'll take them first come, first serve, and we'll be screening them for relevance that pertains to this election. And if for some reason we don't get to your question during this town hall, you'll see underneath Mr. Grayson's screen, there's an email, info@electgrayson.com, that you can email your questions directly to him. And now, before we dive in, I'd like to introduce Mr. Grayson. As I mentioned, he's a former U.S. Congressman who is running in the special election for Florida State Senate District 15, a district that includes Apopka. Mr. Grayson is a Harvard-educated attorney, economist, and a public servant who represented the Orlando area from 2009 to 2011, and then again from 2013 to 2017. And during his time in Congress, he was widely recognized for his legislative productivity, bringing over $2 billion in federal funding back to Central Florida. So thank you, Mr. Grayson, for taking the time tonight to answer a few questions and to give your electorate a chance to learn more about your vision and why you're running to represent District 15. So Reggie.
Thanks, Denise. And welcome, Congressman Grayson.
Thank you.
Are you ready to jump in here?
Am I ready? I'm always ready.
So what's the biggest challenge facing District 15?
One more time.
What's the biggest challenge facing District 15?
The collapse of faith in our public servants to do the right thing and to deliver what we deserve. There's been a failure of democracy now for many years, and the result of that is higher taxes and poor public services. This is on the people whom we elect. They have failed us, and they need to do better. That's what I propose to do by running for this office. When I was in Congress, I brought back an extra $2 billion for everybody in Orange County. That included an $800 million hospital and $1 billion more in roads to ease our traffic burdens, and several $100 million more in healthcare, and another $150 million for the schools, an additional $150 million for the schools. The average person in this district got an extra $3,000 in federal aid when I was in Congress, and we did other things like cutting foreclosures in half. That's what people deserve. They need to stop giving away their vote and getting nothing in return. What I'm proposing to do is to make it better for us. Higher services, better services, and lower taxes.
Okay, we're going to touch on almost every one of the subjects you brought up in that. But I do have a question specific to Apopka. It's a city that's grown from under 50,000 residents just 10 years ago to over 60,000 today. Obviously, with that growth, come some challenges. How would you ensure state support keeps up with infrastructure needs like roads and utilities in Apopka and all of District 15?
Well, the way that I did, for instance, when I was in Congress, some of our earmark money, the money that I got to direct personally, went to Apopka water and sewer expansion. I live in Orange County. I have a house in Orange County. In theory, it's worth more than $1 million. We dig our water out of a ditch in the backyard. We use it, and then we put it under the front in the septic tank. And that's crazy. This is the year 2025, not the year 1825. So what we need to do is to deliver on things like water and sewer, on things like clean air, clean water, clean food, and less traffic and lower tolls. I went to an event in Apopka just this past week, and I had to pay $5 to get there in tolls. This is unfair to everybody locally. That road was paid off 40 years ago, the road that I took. And this just has to stop. We are being ripped off. So what we need is to deliver what people expect from the government. Better water and sewer, better public services generally, full police protection, and also better schools and better roads.
Speaking of roads, in Northwest Orange County, it lacks public transportation pretty much all the way through. What would you do to address transit and commuting challenges in that area?
Well, the main thing is simply to get more money for the roads. Most people, when they're getting from point A to point B, take the roads. But there is also the possibility of better public transportation, and I delivered on that when I was in Congress. When I started in Congress, we had only phase one of Sunrail, and I spoke directly face to face with the Secretary of Transportation under Barack Obama and pitched him on phase two. And that's how we ended up with $600 million invested to bring public transportation to the rest of Orlando. The job is not done. We have to continue. We have to make sure that the 20% of the population that doesn't necessarily drive from point A to point B, for whatever reason, they have access as well. And I'm dedicated to doing that. That's what my record reflects. If you take a bus now in Orlando from point A to point B, I'm talking about a public bus, Lynx bus, there's a good chance that that's an Alan Grayson bus. That's one that I arranged to provide to Lynx. And the same thing is true when you go on the roads. $1 billion of public aid, additional federal highway funding, and local road funding goes a long way.
This is a little bit, we're starting to get quite a few audience questions. So this one's not on the topic we were on, but I'm gonna try to get a few of these out early on. Do you believe you can be effective as a member of a 10 Democrat minority when you're facing a 30 Republican majority, and how so?
Absolutely. When I was in Congress my last 4 years, the Republicans were in charge. I needed to get 30 Republican votes in order to pass anything. I did that 121 times. 121 times. Practically every week, some Grayson law was being passed through the Republican majority in the House with 30 Republican votes or more, because I know how to get good things done. And the secret to this, the main secret to this, is that you have to come up with decent policies that appeal to everybody across the board. Transportation is not a red issue or a blue issue. There's no reason to think of it that way. Traffic and tolls, not a red issue or a blue issue. So what has to happen, apart from the fact that I am a serious bleeding blue Democrat, leaving that aside, we need to come up with better public policies. The fundamental problem right now in Tallahassee is that the lobbyists are in charge and they call all the shots. And it doesn't matter really if you're a Democrat or Republican. The only people these Republican leaders speak to is former lobbyists, future lobbyists, or former and future lobbyists. That's all they ever speak to all day long. And if you bring the fresh air in to that system the way that I did when I was in Congress, you find that you do actually have allies on the other side, simply people who want to make the world a better place who just happen to be Republican.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to jump to another one. I'm sorry, I got questions on both sides of me here.
Mm-hmm.
We live just, this is a viewer question. We live just on the outskirts of the Orange County line. I suspect probably Apopka. Our road is an unmaintained road, but yet our property taxes are high. As living in Orlando, what are your suggestions to reevaluate our property taxes and possibly reduce them?
Well, first, you need to elect a better state senator because that's exactly the kind of problems that we dealt with and we helped people with when I was in Congress. The answer to your question is that, in fact, all of Apopka, including people near Zellwood and on the county line, all of the people in Apopka are being shortchanged. Let's face it, the money goes downtown. It's raised from you in your property taxes, but it goes downtown. I don't think that we're going to see any sort of reform in the mill rate. That doesn't seem likely. But what is feasible is to make sure that you get value for your money and that the money stops being put in downtown and all of these white elephant projects that have been built by Orange County over many years now. The convention center, all sorts of entertainment options downtown. The money should go to you. It should go to your utilities, to go to water and sewer. It should go to roads, and you should get your fair share. That really needs to change. You need to get your fair share.
Turning back to Apopka and to the District 15, what's your position on the state's role managing overdevelopment and preserving green space in fast-growing areas like Apopka and other cities similar to that in District 15?
There has to be local rule. There's no way to bend Tallahassee to the will of Orlando. It's never going to happen. And what we've seen over the course of 20, 30 years now, since the Republicans took over in Tallahassee, is that they're bending Orlando to their will. So what we have to do is to delegate back to Orlando fundamental decision making. I'll give you an example. I arranged and sponsored our effort here in Orlando many years ago to promote paid sick leave and make that the law of the county. We won that election. We actually got public approval for that, but Tallahassee took away the right of Orlando, Orange County, and every other county in the state to make those decisions, and they've done that over and over and over again. So what we need to do is to bring decision making back home and end the reign of terror that Tallahassee and the Republicans have imposed on us in Orange County. If you do that, then these decisions are made locally. They're made by people who are more responsive to you. There's no way that you're going to get the Speaker of the House in the Florida House or the President of the Senate in Tallahassee to listen to you. But every time that the county commission has a meeting, you can go and talk to them every single time. Jerry's there each time, and he has to listen whether he likes it or not. And so what happens is if you delegate these things back home, then you end up with solutions that actually are what people want. So that's really the heart of it. Now, as to specifically how to preserve green spaces, I want to point out that $1 billion with a B, was voted on by the citizens of Florida in order to make that happen, to promote green spaces, and the Republicans in Tallahassee just stole it. So one way or another, you have to force them to be accountable and to give us the kind of environment that we want and we need and we deserve.
This kind of falls into that, and I suspect I already know the answer, but two of Apopka's largest neighborhoods, Errol Estate and Rock Springs Ridge, have golf course lands there that have sat dormant for years. Would you support the state transitioning that type of land into green space for those two communities? Or is that just a little too local?
The answer is it depends. It depends on the circumstances. One thing you often see, and this happened specifically with the sugar interest, big sugar around the state, is that becomes a cover for a bailout. If these golf courses aren't making any money, suddenly they're interested in being set aside as public land, so that they can make what, a couple of $100 million maybe. So it depends upon how you do it. I'm certainly in favor, like Teddy Roosevelt was in favor of making sure that we have nature in our lives. If you don't get that by the age of 12, you're never going to get it. And so you have to be able, when you're growing up, to be, to relate to an environment that doesn't involve a screen, to listen to the birds, to listen to the crickets, to listen to the frogs. I made sure that all of my 5 children had that in their lives from the earliest age possible, because that's where our real roots are. So it's important, but you have to get it right. You can't just like throw money at people and make it happen that way. It's wrong. It's taxpayer money.
Right. We did get another question in that kind of falls into that. Will you protect our state and national parks from development? I'm gonna
Yes.
say probably state more than national, but still.
The answer is yes. And again, you can look at my record. I'll give you an example. Okay. I'll give you an example of exactly that. I forced 2 votes on the Republicans when I was in the House to protect Florida from offshore drilling. And I did it in a way that the Republicans found palatable, because I wanted to win these votes. What I did was I said that it was a states' rights issue, because Republicans like those issues. And I said that in Florida, we shouldn't have offshore drilling unless the state approved it. And suddenly I had those 30 votes that I needed to get across the finish line from California, from Florida, from New Jersey,
Right.
from other places where Republicans have to be sensible in order to get elected at all. And we pushed it to the only tie vote in 10 years. The Republicans held the vote open for more than an hour. But my point is, the reason why I did this is because I am sensitive to these things. And because I do feel like nature needs to be part of our lives. If you want to look at how I really feel about these issues, you could look at the 1,000 votes that I cast when I was in Congress in the 6 years, and you'll see. I mean, the national environmental groups gave me a perfect score. I had the highest score in the country one year for protecting our natural tradition and keeping that as part of our lives.
Okay, back to Apopka. Apopka has struggled to enhance its downtown. Is there anything the state can do to help, or is that up to city and local businesses really to take that on?
Yes, the answer is yes. We had earmarks that we used when I was in Congress for exactly that. And if you go downtown, you'll see what I mean. I mean, there's a huge number of public greenery projects, public sculptures, public art downtown. Modern sidewalks, which is something that's short supply and everywhere in West Orange County. Parking. There are public parking facilities downtown in Orlando, and somehow they never seem to get out to Apopka. Well, the reason is that up to this point, nobody cares, and that will change as soon as I'm elected from day one. So yes, just like every home needs public services, even if it's just a sidewalk or water and sewer or a utility connection, just like every home needs public services, every CBD, Central Business District, needs to be supported by the public and specifically by the state government. So you'll see a lot more of that when I'm in office.
And you touched on this already, but I'll give you a chance to expand a little bit more. Apopka is also experiencing flooding challenges as we speak, actually, in some parts of the city. With hurricane season upon us, do you support state funding to improve stormwater systems?
Absolutely. Again, that's where our earmark money went. You can do all sorts of vanity projects with earmark money. Dan Webster, who replaced me in Congress in 2012, and then I came back in 2014. Dan Webster built a highway with state money and named it after himself. It runs from his house to Disney World. He tried to sell it to the Arabs, by the way. You can waste it, or you can spend it properly. And I have a whole record of spending it properly, in particular on public services. Whether it's schools, which are a special, cherished thing to me. All 5 of my kids went to public schools. Or whether it's roads, or whether it's water and sewer and storm protection, whatever it may be. Now, I think honestly, Jerry and the rest of the crew downtown actually do a pretty good job after a hurricane of removing debris and so on. But we need to be better prepared. My house gets flooded from time to time with about 5 or 6 or 7 inches of water standing in the street. It's nobody's fault but the government. That's something that the government needs to take care of. And that's true for me and for you and for everybody else.
I think this is a audience question I think you're going to like. Hi,
Yeah?
future Senator Alan Grayson.
Okay, it's good. I like to start.
You like the beginning already?
I like to
Thank you
start.
for taking the time to chat with us. My question is, what are your plans for tackling the increasing homelessness on Orlando's streets? And as a theme, I will couple that with in Apopka as well. There's been some strides made in Apopka just this last week, but if I could couple that with the question about Orlando.
Sure. And by the way, while we're in the midst of this, because I know people come, they go, I really want to urge everybody who is listening to me to please vote this week. The turnout has been extremely low, and that's disappointing to me. I'm trying to point the way toward better government and more democracy in our lives where we get something for our vote. So please take the time to vote this week. It'll mean everything to me and to you both. But to answer your question about homelessness, first, homelessness is often a mental health issue. And one of the things that I'm most proud of from my time in Congress is that for the first time, Medicare, Medicaid, and also the military and civilian health systems that the government operates, which are huge, TRICARE and so on, began to provide mental health services. So in order to avoid homelessness in a way that is not coercive and punitive, you need to provide people with mental health. You'll find that as a practical matter, if you do that, people, nobody wants to live on the streets. Everybody wants a roof over their heads. That's been true for about 10,000 years or so. So it's mental health that's often in the way. And if we elevate the standards of mental health, then we decrease homelessness immediately. So we accomplished something approaching equality, or at least some coverage of mental health as well as physical health when I was in Congress, and I will be sure to do the same. That's number one regarding homelessness. Number two is that we have to provide people with non-coercive shelter. And I don't mean a bed on a bus. I mean, that has to be one of the worst ideas I've ever heard in my entire life. Let's take the homeless and put them on a bus in a bunk. First of all, they're not going to do it. And secondly, would you live that way? Should the homeless have to live that way? So, without infringing on anybody's, how should I put this, privacy around the county, we need to create more alternatives of non-coercive shelters for people to stay, because given a fair choice, they'll always do that. Nobody wants to be out in a hurricane. Nobody wants to be rained on. We have a problem. Many other cities have a problem at this point. And the way to deal with it is to give people reasonable, non-coercive options that they prefer to laying in the street.
Okay. Looks like we got a couple more here. Would you support a state prevailing wage law?
I did. I mean, my God, I was with the fight for 15 before anybody else I can think of. When way back in 2016, I was trying to elevate wages. And in particular, one thing that I tried to do, which sadly was unsuccessful, was to get major construction projects governed by the prevailing wage. Whether you're talking about the Service Contract Act or any of the other federal laws, there should be similar state protection. And the Republicans have systematically stripped that away in the past quarter century, so that essentially there's nothing left. The state should not be trying to underbid in the labor market and get people to work more cheaply than private enterprise has to pay. That doesn't even make any sense. So yes, there should be prevailing wage laws throughout the state, including here and everywhere. We shouldn't put people in desperate straits where they can't even make a fair living because you want to save a buck here and a buck there. That's really wrong.
This will be the last question on Apopka unless somebody from the audience asks it. So this will end this section. According to census records, approximately 20% of Apopka's residents are renters. Would you support legislation that supports tenant protections and increases affordable housing incentives?
Again, I would because I did. The renters are fundamentally mistreated by the system because homeowners get the homestead exemption and renters don't. So one of the first things that we should do is to return to renters the difference. Renters should get the equivalent of the homestead exemption, and it should come in the form of a check from the county that's basically a refund of the fact that they've been overcharged on their property taxes. And that's just being fair. It's not, playing favorites with renters over anybody else. It's just being fair. And that starts with that. The system is, how shall I put this? Rigged may be the wrong word to use, but there are enormous, staggering subsidies in the system, starting with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and the FHA and the home loans as well, that favor homeowners. I'm not against that. I'm actually for that. I'm in favor of that. But you have to recognize that just like homeowners deserve a break today, so do renters. What I would like to do is to facilitate home ownership by renters if that's what they choose. And if you ask people, what is the main reason why you don't own a home? The most popular answer to that question, or unpopular answer to that question, depending upon how you look at it, is I don't have the down payment. So one thing that I did when I was in Congress is to bring an organization called NACA to Orlando that offered 0 down payment mortgages. Also tried in one of my few unsuccessful moves when I was in Congress to eliminate the down payment requirement for FHA loans. It's now at 3%. I think it should be 0. All this would give renters a better option than they've ever had before. So I think renters should be treated fairly. There shouldn't be any prejudice against them or discrimination against them. And I also think they should be given a road to homeownership that they don't already have.
Thank you. We're going to move on to statewide policy and legislative priorities, and I already have a question for that from one of the audience. I occasionally tune into the Florida legislature and was shocked when Hope Florida testimony was strongly questioned by Republican legislators. Do you think it's possible to get Republicans on board to stop the massive pay to play in Tallahassee?
Only if people vote. I mean, all this is just a function of the Republicans suppressing Democratic votes to the point where they can do whatever they want. We already have one college president, former legislator, who's got $1 million a year job running a college with barely 1,000 students in it. Now they're doing it again at Florida A&M. Every moment I've spent in public life, I've seen no-show jobs created for Republicans, whether it's the hospitals or the colleges or somewhere else. Honestly, it's been, I believe, more than 10 years now since a Florida legislator wrote what amounts to a book report on the Florida legislature. He wrote about himself, and the colleges paid him $100,000 for that book report. Just shocking. And I think it's just getting worse and worse. So what has to happen is, first of all, the prosecutors in Leon County have to put the screws to these people for a change, instead of just letting them run wild. And secondly, we have to vote. We have to get our votes back. The Democratic, well, 1 million Democrats have dropped off the voter rolls thanks to Republican machinations just in the last 2 years alone. There are now more unregistered Democrats in Florida than there are registered Democrats. That's what we need to really change things. Look at the vote in this election. So far, with a week to go, about half of 1% of the people who live in this district have voted. We have to show up, just like I'm doing today. Showing up is 90% of victory, and that's what the Democrats have to do. Make them pay for all these bad things they do. Make them pay.
So I think you've already probably listed these, but what are your top priorities if elected to the Florida Senate?
First and foremost is affordable housing in one form or another. I already told you that as to PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, we did actually lower people's interest rates all the way down to zero in some cases. People were only paying principal for their mortgages. And the taxes, the system is ridiculous at this point. The homestead exemption is $25,000. I don't know you can't even get a used trailer to live in for anything even approaching $25,000. It's not possible. So the homestead exemption needs to be elevated to something resembling the cost of a homestead. The T part of that needs to be substantially reduced for ordinary human beings, rather than paying through the nose simply because they want to live here in Orlando, and that's what they decide to do, or they grew up here or whatever. Regarding insurance, I spent an awful lot of time on that to try to make that system a little less flawed when I was in Congress, but I'll give you sort of the top line, either through national action or through some kind of interstate compact. We need to spread the risk on hurricanes. We already have national flood insurance. We need national hurricane insurance, national earthquake insurance, national tornado insurance. And when I proposed this, I got strong support from people, as you can imagine, in California, in Texas, and so on. I mean, you can put together a real juggernaut if you're saying there's no reason why Florida has to pay for all this on its own. The hurricanes don't know where the state lines are. So we have to just apply common sense to insurance questions. We have to share the risk with the other 49 states. Beyond that, the system is rigged in crazy ways. For instance, the insurance companies have to insure 225-year risks. I don't think I'm too worried about what might happen in the year 2020. Well, I guess 2250. If I've got that right. And what's going to happen in the year 2250? I guess robots will be in charge. I don't know. We'll all be living on Mars by then or something. I don't know. But I don't care either. There's no reason why we have to pay every month our insurance bill in order to take care of risks in the year 2250. And this money ends up going to the reinsurance companies, the largest of whom are owned by Warren Buffett, who really has a lot of money already. So the system has to change. I have Citizens Insurance. Citizens is supposed to be a public entity that's supposed to create some kind of competitive force. Citizens made an $800 profit last year out of my policy. They made an $800 profit on me. This state agency overcharged me by $800 for my insurance, and you and everybody else who's listening today got overcharged last year by Citizens. So, I mean, these are just obvious problems that have obvious solutions for the most part. What has to happen really is that the insurance lobby has to be put down. They're the ones who are really calling the shots through the Republicans in Tallahassee. And I know this is not something they want to hear. I'll tell you that when I ran for re-election in 2010, the insurance companies were so angry with me, they spent $2 million to take me out. So the insurance companies and I go way back. But I showed that I stand up to them, whereas my opponents take money from them.
I should have anticipated this. You've just spoken quite a bit on insurance, and I have a question from the audience about that.
Great.
I'll give you a chance to amplify what you said. Do you have a plan to help people with the outrageous home insurance policy rates?
Yes, and it's a plan that I just outlined. First of all, the state regulation has to be completely revamped. Other states have public service commissions that actually work, and they keep utility rates down, they keep insurance rates down, and they're functional. I mean, Colorado, for example, has one that's been working well for decades. Just to give you one example. So the insurance regulation has to be taken away from the insurance companies and put back in the hands of the people. For instance, we could elect our insurance commissioners, and that might be some kind of limitation on what happens. Another practical thing is that we have to stop insuring ridiculous risks like 225-year risks, which result in huge billions of dollars going to the reinsurance companies outside the state, many of whom, by the way, are in tax havens like the Bahamas, so they don't have to pay any taxes on what they rake off of us. Citizens has become completely dysfunctional. The state agency that provides more and more of these insurance policies is overcharging us by absurd amounts. It should be against the law for Citizens to make a profit from us. They're supposed to be lowering our costs, not increasing them. And in addition to that, the Republicans have to stop catering to these special interests. The reason why we're in this hole to start with is not because of the fact that we get hit by hurricanes from time to time. The reason why we're in this hole is because of bad government. And that is really fundamentally what needs to change. People have to seize back their power. Your vote is your power. And whether you're talking about insurance or traffic or outrageous tolls or anything else the government does to touch your life, and instead of tickling you, they squash you. This is just a function of bad government. And that's the fundamental thing that needs to change. We need to have power to the people and not to the lobbyists.
Okay, turning to education, do you support Florida's current voucher program, or would you propose changes to that?
I don't. I think if it's not broke, you shouldn't try to fix it, and you shouldn't try to break it. And what I'm seeing with the voucher program is a very heavy effort to break public education. Whether you're talking about banning books, or you're talking about low teacher pay, or you're talking about the voucher system that's been created, you're basically talking about taking away from us the one common experience that we all have, which is going to school. I mean, apart from that, really, there isn't really much that we all share together. That's one reason why all of my 5 kids went to public school. So I think the voucher system is a concerted effort to undermine that, and to basically foist on us a exploitative for-profit system that undermines public values, shared common good values, and just literally cheats us. I mean, everybody who's taking these vouchers and putting on a school, they're taking as much as they could possibly get from the voucher money. They're giving as little as possible in return for education, and they're making money from the difference. It's a fundamentally bad idea to let people profit off our children's education. It's really bad. So I'm against it.
Kind of to follow up on that, if all of the money that goes to the voucher program went to public education, does Florida spend enough on education if they were to combine the two?
No, I mean, thank God for Mississippi, because otherwise Florida would be at the very bottom. Clearly the system needs more resources, and I deliver on that. As I mentioned earlier, there was in my first term in office was an extra $100 million for Orange County schools, an extra $50 million for Osceola County schools, an extra $50 million for Lake County schools across the border. And it went where it was really needed. It went to school construction and it went to special education, two things that are like woefully, woefully underfunded by the current system. And the result of that is that my children started going to trailers when they were starting public school. And then in the end, they were in brick schoolhouses. And that was thanks to the money that I brought home to improve public education. I'll tell you something, when you're in a trailer and the air conditioning's on, you're sitting in the back, you can't hear what the teacher's saying. It's very basic stuff like that.
Right.
And that's sort of like the common sense approach that we need in order to increase these resources and also make sure that they're not wasted, that they actually hit the classroom and they help students to learn. I also think that there's a fundamental philosophical problem, which is that we are promoting factory schools. Where, according to the Republicans in the state legislature, kids learn the Ten Commandments and nothing else. And I think that that's wrong. The proper way to approach education is to recognize that every child is different, and it's the things that make us different. Those are the things that make us special. So the proper way to allocate resources in education, if I can use that cold term, is to recognize that and to think hard about each student. What is a student interested in? What does a student care about? What is a student good at? What does a student want to learn? And provide the things that make every student be all that he or she can be. That's the proper approach to education.
And how would you improve funding, particularly to Orange County like you did in Congress? How would you do that in Tallahassee?
With more state aid. The Orange County, fortunately, is kind of in the middle in terms of resources. But what the only way to take a place that is, doesn't have a huge property tax base and to elevate their education funding is through state aid. There's just no other way to do it, or federal aid. I mean, somebody outside of the county has to put money into the county in order to make that happen. It's just basic arithmetic. So I wouldn't say that, our tax base is impoverished in Orange County, but I will say that the state should be topping it off, if you will. And that is a very core function of state government. It's not a core function to hand billions to billionaires and to make sure that the rich get richer, which is kind of how things operate right now. It's a core function for the state to make sure that people have basic, adequate public services, roads, schools, bridges, utilities, water and sewer. I mean, the things that people really need, and healthcare, by the way. I put healthcare on that list. These are the things that the state has to top off in order to make sure that everyone has a basic level of these things.
Turning to healthcare, which is my next question, actually, do you support an expansion of Medicaid in Florida?
Well, my goodness, I voted for it. In fact, I was literally the deciding vote way back in 2010 when we voted on these things. You go back and look on C-SPAN, I was the last person to vote. And there was a one-vote margin on some of these votes. I did it under enormous pressure. I already told you that the price I had to pay for that is that in my next election, which I lost in 2010, the insurance companies, the health insurance companies, spent $2 million against me and just inundated the district with gross, ridiculous propaganda and smearing against me, which I think everybody who's on this channel has heard in the past. Just complete lies about me. If they told the truth about me, they would have said Alan Grayson voted to expand Medicaid, and that's why we're upset. And there's now only a tiny minority of states that have refused the federal money. In our case, it's $70 billion. This isn't a case where the Republicans are cutting their nose to spite their face. This is a case where the Republicans are cutting your nose to spite their face. That's what's happening here. They turned away $70 billion for health care. That's $3,500 for every single human being in the state. Now, obviously most of that would have gone to the people who need it the most, the people who can't afford health insurance. And that's exactly the way that it should be. Health care is a human right. So, my God, we probably wouldn't even have Medicaid expansion except for the fact that I voted for it and paid the price. And so I don't know what more you could do than to say that this is what I've done. I care about it with all my heart.
Thank you. We talked about affordable housing locally earlier, but how would you address it on a state level?
The way that I described the state. I'll give you a concrete example, which is just shocking to me. Because of the Constitution, the federal government is unable to tax state bonds. So the state can issue housing bonds and use that to provide people mortgages. That's perfectly legal. Last year, the state of Florida did that for, wait for it, 13,000 people in a state of almost 22 million. They did that for 13,000 people. So we should have done it for 13 million people. I mean, what happens is that when you do that, you lower the homeowner's interest rate that they're paying on their mortgage by 2%, approximately 2%. That's around $5,000 for every homeowner in the entire state. Why isn't anybody doing that? There are other states that do it. Why isn't Florida doing it? So in order to make housing more affordable, you're not going to really be able to do much about the price of property. What you can do, I mean, people who own the homes don't really want to see the value of their homes go down. What you can do is to lower interest rates. You can bring 0% interest to the county the way that I did when I was first in office. You can lower taxes or make the burden more equal by increasing the exemption and having the exemption that we have, the homestead exemption, extend to renters. And as for insurance, I already waxed poetic about that earlier in this call. So I don't think I need to repeat myself, but these are problems that have solutions. The real problem is that the people whom we elect don't do a damn thing about them. And that needs to change.
So I said we were done with the Apopka section, but we are the Apopka Voice. So I actually have one more that I slipped in here. There was a debate on social media between the two Apopka mayoral candidates earlier, a couple weeks ago, about an affordable housing project that wasn't paying impact fees. Are you in support of developers getting discounts to build affordable housing in a community, or should they pay the same impact fees as any builder?
Well, as I answered an earlier question, is the answer is it depends. I mean, I'm not in favor of corporate welfare in general, and I don't believe that we should be giving hundreds of millions of dollars to golf course owners, for instance, as we discussed earlier. It depends. I mean, if you can demonstrate that the kind of subsidy that you're talking about actually is going to end up making housing more affordable, it's a reasonable thing. for the government to do. But if it's a handout to developers, you know, God, I mean, the developers are some of the richest people in Orlando already. I have nothing against them. I'm a capitalist, but honestly, they don't need more money. They don't need public money in order to do these things. So I think the answer is it depends on how it's done.
Right. And one more question on Apopka. This is
Yeah.
from one of our viewers. What would you do to improve the quality of the water in Apopka?
Public water and sewer. It is appalling to me that half of West Orange County relies upon what I rely upon, which is a ditch in the backyard, in order to get their water. And then, as I said before, they use it and then they put it in front of the front lawn. Uh, that's just weird. And it really has to end. Every home needs to have public water and public sewer available. If you want to dig a well, God bless you, feel free. But in this year of 2025, we have to use what's available to us to make life livable, and that includes clean water, clean air, as I mentioned before, clean food, and that is entirely on the government. I mean, literally true that up to this point, the government has decided who has public water and who doesn't. I don't know how I missed the list, but I did, and so did my entire neighborhood, which is full of very nice homes. So that just has to change. We have to do it the way that I tried to do it or started to do with earmark money when I was in Congress.
So that's the end of that section. The final one is a kind of a lightning round, campaign experience and politics. What lessons did you learn from your time in Congress that could help you in the Florida legislature?
That there is an audience among serious people on both sides of the aisle to make the world a better place. And the only way to find out is to sit down with them and try to figure that out one by one. There's only 40 members in the Florida Senate. It's easy, not that difficult. You need at least 10 of them to be serious people in order to pass something with Democratic and Republican votes together. But that's really my true audience. In the Florida Senate, my audience is serious people, whether Democratic or Republican, who want to make the world a better place. And I believe that there are enough to piece together 21 votes in order to accomplish that. And that's the answer. I know that I was understood to be a firebrand. And as I said before, I bleed blue as a Democrat. That's not going to change. I believe in the common good. I believe that the only way to make everybody better off is to make everybody better off. And that's not going to change. But the way that I was able to pass more laws than any other member of Congress as a Democrat, even though the Republicans were in charge, was to look for that sort of common ground to make people's lives better. And I think it's there.
What's one thing you've changed your mind about to do with politics or policy, and why?
That democracy is well functioning. I did believe when I first ran for office in 2006 that if people stood together, then you ended up with good results, and you ended up with common sense results that benefited everybody. I no longer believe that. I think that the Republicans have created something verging on dictatorship, both here in the state and nationally. And I feel bad about that, and I want to try to change that. I've told people that if I ran statewide, my first goal would be to register 1 million Democrats and to turn that around. The Republicans have systematically dismembered democracy in this state. And that's the biggest change since I first ran for a public office 19 years ago. I have changed my mind. This system so badly needs to be reformed, and it's going to take more than just one election. This is a start, but it's gonna have to be a long-term project. I will point out that in 2008, we registered 850,000 Democrats. We being the Obama team, including me, registered 850,000 Democrats that year, and we turned things around. But now we're back to where we were and worse than we were that year. So I no longer feel that all you have to do is just, hope for the best and have people reflect their districts. It's going to take more than that.
Right. Speaking of President Obama, what was your experience working with him in Washington?
Well, I mean, he was good to me. That's why we have Sunrail Phase 2. And I could give you some other examples. That's why we have the Veterans Hospital in Lake Nona. That's why the space program continued in Cape Canaveral for a year. That was because he was willing to make accommodations that would make certain things happen here in Central Florida. That's why I was able to get an extra $2 billion for us, because at that point I had the cooperation of the Obama administration. And as I said, when the Republicans took over the House, I was a bit more constrained. But what I found with President Obama is that we got our fair share and maybe a little bit more. In addition to that, I respect him for one particular reason, which is that he always appealed to people's better natures. Just like President Lincoln did, quoting the Gettysburg Address now. And I respected that. He understood that the whole goal of all of this is just to help people to be all they can be, not chained by discrimination or bad health or poverty or bad education. And he meant that. So I respected that in him.
So your political style has been described as combative. You touched on it a little bit yourself, and by some, and passionate by others. What will your approach be to working with colleagues in the Florida legislature?
What I said, I mean, to get to 21 in the Florida Senate for things that make the world a better place, and in particular benefit us. The same way that I did when I was in Congress. There are some people you're just not going to get along with. I think that I'll give you an example of this. Okay, there was a Republican member of Congress who said he didn't believe in global warming, and that carbon dioxide was a good thing because it helps plants to grow. So in a public hearing, I said to him, well, here's my suggestion. Take a plastic bag, put it over your head, make sure it's really tight around your neck, breathe out all the carbon dioxide you can, and see what happens next. Sometimes you have to be honest with people. And I was. There were famous fights between me and people who I thought were just being nutty. It's ancient history now with people like Michelle Bachmann. And today, it would be MTG and a few others. MTG in my last race, one of her political operas spent $80,000 against me in that race. So I guess she kind of figured that she didn't want me in public life again. But that's the way it goes. Some people deserve to be mocked, but underneath it all, what I'm looking for is allies in the common cause of the common good, and common sense. I'm always trying to piece together the majority that I think ought to be there and often is there for making the world a better place.
Okay. What distinguishes you from the other candidates in this election?
Oh my God. I mean, I'm the only one who got things done. It is literally true. And one of my opponents introduced a bill that passed to rename a playground. Goodness, rename a playground. We used to joke about that. We used to say that, if you can't get anything good done, you could always rename a post office. We make that joke among ourselves. I'm running against two failed candidates who and one wannabe who never was. I'm trying to be mean. I'm trying to be accurate. These are people, two of them who had the chance to serve Apopka and accomplish nothing. And if you don't believe me, then ask yourself. I mean, if you want to know what I did for you, then look at the road you're driving on. Okay? Look at the road you're driving on. It's a good chance that I paid for that. I brought that money to Orlando. And I could give you countless other examples of that. And in one case, one of these opponents had 10 years in office, and one of them's had 3 years in office, and they have accomplished nothing. Ask yourself. And I tell this people over and over again, don't give away your vote. You should get something in return. And in my case, you did, and you will.
So this is, I think, the only question I asked on your interview that I'll ask again. Why do you want to be in the Florida legislature, considering all factors?
Well, for the same reason that Corin Brown told to me when I asked her what's the best thing about being in Congress. And I think people really misunderstand Corin Brown. I am so sorry about that. But when I was first running and we first got together at an event, I arranged for a side conversation with her. And I asked her the question that you just asked me. Why do you want to do it? And she told me, because of all the good that you can do for people. That's the right answer.
Right. So if you are elected, how many terms would you serve?
Well, you're only allowed 2 in a row, but I am 67 years old, so I think nature will take its course in that regard.
Any thoughts about what you might do after? What would be the next
well, I hope to have grandchildren one day. I've got 5 children. I'd love to play with them. I mean, that's who I really am. I love children.
And I'm sorry, I've done it again. One more question about Apopka. What do you think is the biggest issue facing Apopka?
Getting its fair share. I don't want to be vulgar, but Apopka's getting screwed. It's just a fact. It was a fact when I was representing Apopka in Congress. It's still a fact. And I did my best when I was representing Apopka, but now things have gotten worse. So the basic answer is Apopka deserves its fair share.
And how would you do that? How would you get them their fair share?
I just grab every dollar I can get my hands on and bring it home, just like I did. I mean, I was joking the other day that if I could bring the Washington Monument to West Orange County, I would do that. You just grab whatever you can. I'll give you another example. My first year in office, I got an extra $100 million out of the federal competitive grant program. That's the stuff you actually have to compete for. Okay, and then I had a full-time staffer assigned to just grabbing every dollar out of it. Just get whatever you can. It didn't matter to me what it was going for. It could have gone to the hospitals, it could have gone to the schools, it could have gone to the police. That's another example. It could have gone to the museum. We got a competitive grant for one of our museums. One is you concentrate on it and you do it and you make it happen, whether it's through earmarks or whether it's through competitive grants or whatever. Can you name a single person now anywhere in Central Florida who is an elected official who's actually trying to do that? Because I can't. I can't name anybody. It's like nobody's even trying anymore.
I think we have time for one more question, and you've already answered it, but I'm going to give you one shot. Is there a story you can tell about President Obama while you were up there? Do you have any anecdotes or anything?
Oh my God. There's nowhere near enough time to answer those questions. Sure, if you want.
We want.
Yeah, okay. I was about 200 feet away when Charlie Crist and Barack Obama kissed or sort of hugged or whatever it was that
Right.
they were doing, which came close to ending Charlie Crist's career. That happened on the tarmac on a flight, on Air Force One flight that I was on. And, I had a good solid 45 minutes with the president on that flight out of our 2.5 hour flight, and got to know him a bit personally. He was very fond of his bomber jacket that had the presidential seal on it. But leaving that aside, that we went down there and he was kind of like talking about like, how is this going to go? Chris is a Republican, but he seems to be a decent guy. And when we got on the tarmac, we saw a little bit of both of them, and what they're really like. And it turns out the Republicans didn't like that. They didn't want somebody who was going to get along with people. They wanted somebody who was going to try to bash Obama or say that he was born in Kenya or something stupid like that. So what you saw in that moment, what I saw from literally like 200 feet away, was the real Barack Obama. He is actually an interesting, warm person, and you saw the real Charlie Crist, somebody who is the same way. Really, when you get down to it, he just happens to be a former Republican, now he's Democrat.
Right.
And the chemistry between them was real. And I think that if you want to know about Barack Obama, look back on that moment.
Nice. I guess the best way to end this is just to let you have a closing statement. I'll give you all the last words.
Okay, look, I appreciate it. For those of you who hung in there, or those of you who are just like browsing on YouTube and seeing if I say something really funny, funny or funny not funny. For those of you who still are watching, thank you. And I want you to know this is not about me. This is about you. We have this funky thing, which we call elections, that we do from time to time. And as I said before, your vote is your power. It's the one way to solve problems that are too big for individuals to solve. Okay, there is no way that I can get the county by myself to put a water and sewer system into my house. They won't listen to me. That's something that we have to come together and solve. If I'm stuck in traffic for half an hour, that's because some public official let me down. And the same thing is true with you. Whether we're talking about hurricanes, or we're talking about traffic, we're talking about high insurance costs, or anything else. The only way to solve these problems is to put somebody in office to vote, and to put somebody in office who is going to get these things done for you. So this is your big chance to make your life better. And the way to do that is to vote for Alan Grayson.
Nice. Thank you, Congressman Grayson. I'm going to turn it back over to Denise now.
Thank you, Reggie. And thank you again, Mr. Grayson, for taking the time to speak with us, to share your insights and your priorities and plans as a candidate for the Florida State Senate District 15. I also want to thank your viewers. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for asking thoughtful questions, good questions, and staying engaged in the democratic process. I think it's events like these that are a reminder that informed communities are strong communities, and that your voice matters, especially at the local and state level. If you did not get a chance to submit your question, if it didn't get asked this round, please remember you can email Mr. Grayson directly at info@electgrayson.com. And thank you again. Stay safe, stay informed, and be sure to vote. Early voting is going on right now. And election day for the special election is Tuesday, June 24th. So thank you and have a good evening.